So you act like your parents own half of Abuja when while your mom is selling rice and stew.
At one of Abuja's most respected secondary schools, there were four girls everyone admired. Their names were Sharon, Deborah, Blessing, and Princess. They were always together, always dressed beautifully, and always carried the latest gadgets. To the rest of the students, they represented the kind of life everyone wished they had. But there was one thing nobody knew. While three of the girls truly came from wealthy families, Princess was only trying to look like she did. Princess Obi was 17 years old and in SS3. She was intelligent, beautiful, and hardworking, but she carried a fear she never admitted to anyone. She was afraid of being seen as less than her friends. At home, Princess lived a very different life. The Obi family was not poor, but they were not wealthy either. They were a hard-working family trying their best to give their children a comfortable life. Her father, Mr. Obi, worked as an administrative officer in a private company in Abuja, and her mother, Mrs. Obi, owned a small food shop where she prepared and sold homemade meals to customers in the area. Princess was the oldest child, with 10-year-old twins Daniel and Daniela following her behind. The twins had recently started JS1. Mr. and Mrs. Obi always reminded their children that education was the greatest gift they could give them, and not to take it for granted, as they were willing to make sacrifices to give them the best education. One day, Princess noticed Sharon carrying a beautiful designer school bag. Deborah and Blessing admired it immediately, talking about how expensive and fashionable it looked. Princess smiled with them, but secretly wished she had something similar. That evening, she asked her parents if they could buy her a new bag. Mr. and Mrs. Obi explained that they had just paid school fees and needed to be careful with their spending, reminding her that her current bag was still in good condition. Princess understood their explanation, but she could not stop thinking about the bag her friends had. The next day at school, she watched as Sharon, Deborah, and Blessing show off their new items. For the first time, Princess felt like she was standing outside the group she wanted to belong to. That feeling stayed with her. A few days later, Princess lied to her parents, saying that SS3 students needed to buy a special WAEC preparation book. Mr. and Mrs. Obi hesitated because money was already tight, but they trusted their daughter and believed it was important for her education, so they gave her the money. Rather than buying a book, Princess bought the same designer bag she had been admiring. When she arrived at school with the new bag, her friends immediately noticed. Sharon complimented her, Deborah asked where she got it, and Blessing admired the design. For the first time, Princess felt accepted. She began believing that looking wealthy was the key to fitting in. So she kept finding new ways to impress her friends. One afternoon, as the cashier calculated their food, Princess looked at the money her parents had given her. Before anyone could reach for their money, she paid for everyone's meal. The girls thanked her excitedly, and Sharon called her the best friend anyone could ask for. Princess smiled. Those few words meant more to her than the money she...
A few weeks later, the girls passed by a fashion store near the school. Inside the window were matching handbags that caught their attention. Sharon admired the matching bags, saying they would be perfect for their next outing. Princess noticed how excited they all were and couldn't stop thinking about the bags. A few days later, after telling her parents she needed money for important SS3 manuals, she returned to the store alone and bought 3 matching bags for Sharon, Deborah, and Blessing. The next day at school, Princess surprised her friends with the gifts, leaving them speechless with excitement. When they asked why she didn't buy one for herself, Princess simply smiled and told them she already had a limited edition bag at home. The girls admired her even more. But behind the smile, Princess knew the truth. She was spending money she had lied to receive, and every time her friends praised her, she became more afraid of losing the image she had created. One weekend, the 4 girls gathered at Blessing's house. After school, they spent the afternoon laughing, taking pictures, and comparing the latest things they owned. As they talked, Sharon noticed Princess's old phone and picked it up. Princess immediately felt uncomfortable. Sharon asked why she was still using it instead of getting a newer one. Princess quickly laughed and claimed her parents had already bought her the latest laptop and tablet, so she simply hadn't bothered changing her phone. The girls were impressed and believed her. That evening, Princess looked at her old phone and felt embarrassed. She had convinced everyone her family could afford anything. Now, she felt she had to make the lie true. That night, Princess begged her parents for a new phone. Mr. and Mrs. Obi explained that they had just spent a lot on school expenses and that replacing a working phone was not their priority. But Princess insisted. She told them she needed it and promised it would help her with school. After much consideration and giving it much thought, Mr. Obi finally decided to get her a new phone. He used some of the money he had been saving to get her a new phone. Princess was excited. She immediately showed it off at school, enjoying the admiration from her friends. But while Princess celebrated her new image, Mr. Obi quietly made a decision. To recover all the money they had been spending recently, he would start taking extra shifts at work. He believed every sacrifice was worth it for her daughter's future. He did not know that the sacrifice was not for education. It was for a lie Princess was slowly losing control of.
After getting the new phone, Princess felt more confident than ever. She walked through school feeling like she finally belonged among Sharon, Deborah, and Blessing. The attention she received from them made her believe she had made the right choice. But keeping up with their lifestyle became harder every day. Princess continued creating reasons to ask her parents for money, and every request sounded like it was connected to school. A new textbook, a special class, an important examination fee, a program she claimed every SS3 student needed to attend. Mr. and Mrs. Obi never questioned her because they trusted their daughter. They believed every sacrifice was helping secure her future. But while Princess was using the money to maintain an image, her parents were quietly carrying the weight of her choices. Mr. Obi began working longer hours, taking every extra shift he could. He came home exhausted every night, but always said he was fine. He believed every sacrifice was worth it for his children. Princess saw his tired face, but she was too focused on fitting in to notice what it cost him. One afternoon, after another long day at work, Mr. Obi suddenly collapsed in his office. His colleagues rushed him to the hospital. When the family received the call, they were completely shaken. Mrs. Obi immediately left everything and went to be with him. Princess stood silently as she watched her father lying in the hospital bed. For the first time, she saw how exhausted he really was. The man who provided everything for her, who never complained, and who always said he was doing it all for his children. The reality finally began to sink in. Her parents were not just giving her money, they were sacrificing themselves. After Mr. Obi was discharged, the doctor advised him to rest and avoid unnecessary stress. With Mr. Obi recovering and the food shop still needing attention, Princess asked Princess to help at the shop that weekend. Princess hesitated because she was scared of the possibility that someone from school might see her there. But her mother needed help, so
For the first time, she spent an entire day working beside her mother. She watched Mrs. Obi wake up early to prepare food. She watched her serve customers with patience even when she was tired. She watched her clean, cook, and manage everything without complaining. Princess slowly began seeing the effort behind the small business she had once been embarrassed about. But even after seeing her mother's sacrifices, she still carried the fear of what people would think. Later that day, while Princess was busy arranging food containers and helping customers, a familiar person walked into the shop. Deborah had come with her family to buy food. She entered the shop casually, expecting to pick up their order and leave. But then she stopped. She looked across the room and she saw Princess, wearing an apron, helping customers, working inside the small food shop. For a moment, Deborah said nothing. She was surprised because this was not the Princess she knew at school. Princess was too busy working to notice her until Deborah finally walked up to her. The moment their eyes met, Princess froze. She immediately knew what Deborah had discovered. Mrs. Obi noticed the visitor and happily walked over. She smiled and asked if Deborah was one of Princess's friends from school. She welcomed her warmly and offered her something to eat. Deborah greeted her politely. Then she asked Mrs. Obi if she could speak to Princess outside, and the woman agreed. The moment they stepped away from the shop, Deborah began asking questions. She wanted to know if the woman inside was really Princess's mother, if this was really where Princess came from. Princess stayed quiet at first, before admitting the truth. She told Deborah that the shop belonged to her mother and that she helped there sometimes, especially when her family needed extra hands. Then Princess's fear took over. She begged Deborah not to tell Sharon and Blessing. She explained that they would never look at her the same way again, and she was terrified of losing the friendship she had spent so long trying to protect. Deborah looked at her for a long moment. Then she promised she would keep the secret on one condition. Every time she came to the shop, Princess would make sure she never paid for her food.
It seemed like a small request. Princess agreed and was just grateful that Deborah would not expose her. But soon, the requests began bigger. A lot of chicken, extra portions, more food to take home, sometimes food for Sharon and Blessing too. Princess kept giving in. Every time she handed over the food, she told herself it was the price of keeping her secret safe. But the consequences began appearing at home. Mrs. Obi noticed that certain items were finishing faster than usual. She wondered if something was wrong. She questioned the workers and tried to understand where the missing supplies were going. Princess heard her mother worrying but stayed silent. She knew the truth. She knew she was the reason, and the guilt became heavier every day. At school, Deborah continued acting like nothing had happened. She laughed with Princess, she sat with her, and made Princess believe their friendship was safe. But behind the scenes, Deborah had already made another decision.
The next morning, Princess arrived at school as usual. She wore her neatly pressed uniform, carried her school bag, and walked through the same hallways to get to class. But the moment she entered her classroom, she knew something was wrong. Sharon, Deborah, and Blessing were already there. The three girls who once made her feel accepted now looked at her differently. Princess slowly walked to her seat. Before she could say anything, the three girls walked toward her. The classroom became quiet. Everyone watched as they stood in front of her. Then Sharon started. "So you really made us believe your father owns half of Abuja. Meanwhile, your mother is selling rice and stew." Blessing replied to her, "I still can't believe it. All this time you were acting like you had everything. Actually, now that I think about it, it makes sense." "What do you mean?" "Have you ever noticed that we've never been to Princess's house? She never talks about her family, what her parents do, or anything about her life outside school." Deborah stated, "Wait, that's true." "Because she didn't want us to know." Princess stood there silently. She could hear the whispers around her. She could feel everyone's eyes on her. The people she had spent so much time trying to impress were now laughing at the very thing she had been trying to hide. She wanted to explain, she wanted to defend herself, but she could not, because deep down, she knew the truth. Princess quietly picked up her bag and walked out of the classroom. She did not stop until she reached the bathroom. The moment she closed the door fully, she broke down. She cried because her friends had humiliated her. She cried because the image she worked so hard to build had completely fallen apart. But most importantly, she cried because she finally understood the people she had hurt while trying to impress others. Her mother, who spent every day working hard at the food shop. Her father, who pushed himself until his body could no longer keep up. Her younger siblings, who never asked for anything but still shared her parents' sacrifices. For the first time, Princess realized the truth. Her family's life was never something to be ashamed of. The shame was in pretending she was above them.
Later that evening, Princess returned home quietly. Things felt different. Her father had returned after collapsing at work, but he was still recovering and needed plenty of rest. She watched him sitting quietly, looking weaker than he used to. The man who kept pushing himself because he wanted to give his children a better life. Princess finally understood the cost of everything she had done. That night, she gathered her parents together. For the first time, she stopped protecting the image she had created. She told them everything. Every lie she had told, every excuse she had created, every time she used the money they sacrificed to give her for things that had nothing to do with school. She apologized for making them struggle just so she could impress people who never truly cared about her. Mrs. Obi listened quietly as tears filled her eyes. She was hurt by her daughter's choices, but she was grateful that Princess had finally understood. Mr. Obi reminded her that everything he did was because he loved her. But he also reminded her that love and sacrifice should never be taken for granted. Princess also apologized to Daniel and Daniela. She admitted that while she was busy chasing acceptance from people outside the home, she had forgotten the family that always loved her. The twins forgave her because they had always loved her sister. When Princess returned to school, she was no longer the girl trying to prove something. She walked up to Sharon, Deborah, and Blessing. She did not come to fight. She did not come to beg. "You know what? I'm done pretending I'm ashamed of my parents. My mom sells food and I'm proud of her. I'll help her anytime she needs me, and I won't hide it from anyone. My parents work hard to give us the best future they can, and I'm proud of them. What's pathetic is choosing friends based on money and what they have. Honestly, I don't even think the three of you genuinely like each other. You are constantly competing to see who has more. I'm done trying to fit in with you. I'd rather be proud of who I am than pretend to be someone I'm not just to have friends." She said all this before confidently walking to her seat. Princess ended the friendship that had made her lose herself. Months later, Princess continued helping her mother at the shop. The same apron she once feared wearing became something she wore with pride. Her family was still working hard. Their struggles did not disappear overnight. But Princess had changed. She no longer measured her worth by the things she owned. She measured it by the love around her. And she finally learned that the people who truly matter are not the ones who love the image you create. They are the ones who love you for who you really are. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your thoughts on the video. And remember, you never have to force yourself to fit in. The right people will accept you